Ready to go? We're good. Good evening. Welcome to the July 22nd, 2021, 5:30 study session of the Governing Board. We're going to call this meeting to order at 5:32. Can I get a motion for the adoption of the study session agenda?
Roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. Roll call.
Thank you, Madam Vice President. Governing Board members present, Vice President Nikki Whaley, Governing Board members Jenny Abbott-Bayardi and Lindsay Peterson, Governing Board members absent, President Bill Adams.
Thank you. Now, can I get a motion for the adoption of our study session agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Can I get a second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Abbott-Bayardi. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. So we are going to turn it over to Dr. Stanton to kick us off on this study session.
Madam Vice President, members of the board, members of the audience, we're going to be tonight's study session. Our team has brought together what Washington District has been doing for student and staff retention. And then I'm sure we'll have it, just for everybody, a reminder, there is no action items. It's an information session only, for lack of better words. So we'll start out with, actually, Steve Mattingly will talk about our staff retention practices. Steve? And for those in the audience, we're just getting Mr. Mattingly set up at the podium, and we'll be right there. So, Ms. Fernandez and Ms. Horton, everything okay online? Thank you.
Test. All right. Well, hi. Madam Vice President, Governing Board members, Dr. Stanton, guests in the audience. First of all, thanks for the opportunity to share this study session on staff retention. So I'm excited to share some of the stuff with you. As a new member of BLT, I got to see some really rewarding data that introduces me to why I picked Washington. So I'd like to share that with the Governing Board tonight. So start off with staff retention, and there's a 3-year data points here that you get to see. And the key point to take away from here is something really exciting. Over the last 3 years, over everything we just dealt with over this last year, a consistent data point of 87%, on the average, 87% retention. That's pretty high, and that's exciting, especially for education and what education has to manage as far as the lack of teachers out there for all districts. So that's exciting. And on the average, we're around hiring 100, 160, give or take, teachers every year. So we're excited to say that we're at an 87% retention rate, and definitely excited to share that with the Governing Board tonight. Next, I want to get into staff retention. How do we retain staff here in the Washington Elementary School District? Well, I want to start off with, if we look on the wall right here, we have 36 members of our staff or our community members that have been recognized at the highest level that the Washington Elementary School District involves himself in recognizing their contributions to make us successful when we're serving the most important product, and that's our students in this community, our children in this community. So we use that as a staff retention hook, if you will, and it's meaningful and it's valued. The other piece is, and this is, and I was educated on this, and I really enjoyed researching the Apple Award. And the Apple Award recognizes our employees here for providing a level of service that makes a difference to students. And what's really interesting and cool about this, if I can use the word cool, is it's other employees recognizing other employees. And it's not just a certificate. The specificity involved in the certificate is meaningful from that employee to say, thank you for helping me do my job to serve students and other employees. And so, and you see on the slide here what's exciting, and I meant to take a photo of it as one of the schools, I'll name the school of Chaparral. And these Apple Awards were all over the place. And I go, I got to get a picture of this. And I go, well, no, wait a minute. It's all over the district office, too. It's meaningful, and it means something. So that's a part of our staff retention. So now I want to get into what are some programs that we use. Just briefly, we have a Begin program that is intentional to serve the needs of our new teachers. It's an induction program, provides numerous types of different professional development. And these go on monthly for our new teachers to the district. We also have a really exciting and powerful program that not all districts have, and I'm excited to say that I'm glad I'm a part of this district because I knew about it when I was in another district. So it's exciting, this Bridge program. And so I would say to the board that this program attracts and retains teachers to build a career, it's a career pathway in education, specifically for those that has a college degree that's not education degree, and it provides them a free opportunity to go through a program where the state of Arizona will recognize them and provide them a 12-year teaching certificate at no cost to the person that is a part of that program. Pretty powerful, right? The next retention program that I'd like to share with the site-based support, support we provide our new staff, and those happen prior to school starting. It's also a part of making sure that they itemize and use specificity when it comes to including classroom management, instructional resources, grading, parent conferences, all the things that we need to provide our new teachers to be successful. Another retention approach that we have is it's called the District Green Day Professional Development. This is an academic service initiative that provides professional development for all staff one Wednesday a month, and that is a day where it's a half day where we focus on the needs of that teacher, and the teachers get to choose where their needs are and all the different PD that's around the district, where they get to go and pick where they want to attend that professional development. We also have classified professional development. Now, we started a strong and intentional initiative last year where we went out and surveyed what are the needs of our classified staff members, not only by the classified staff themselves, but the supervisors that provide a level of service to those. So we're excited about continuing that this year. We also have professional development that happens weekly. It's a variety of professional development opportunities for teachers that are either district focused or site focused. Those are weekly PDs that are provided for our staff. We also have the Aspire program, and this is pretty exciting. Now, this is where we truly show with our deeds that we grow our own. It's important to us to show that we're here to grow our own, and it's a year-long administrative career pathway program for our Washington Elementary School District staff, and it focuses on leadership skills and qualities to be successful as an administrator as they try to build in their library those tools of success. And we're excited to share with the governing board tonight that 6 out of our 9 positions that were open were hired through this program. Pretty exciting. So the program does work. We're excited about that. Also next in our staff retention that we'd like to brag about is our new new administrator training. That's all of our we just talked about, we hired 6 out of our 9. That's a program for those new administrators to the district or from within the district that are now administrators, and it helps them with dealing with those stressful times as a leadership, with conflict resolution, budget, staffing, whatever the needs are to be successful when it comes to being a quality administrator in this district serving. We also have new assistant principal training. That's monthly PD that pertains again to leadership, management of a school, immediate needs of the assistant principal, and just having a good pulse of what their needs are and providing that PD. And it's not all just curriculum based, it's how's it going, what do you need, how can we serve you? We also now want to get into a very strong structure here in the district of different type of coaches that we provide our teachers and staff throughout the district. I'll start with administration coaches. They're there to support our school administrators with training that maximizes their leadership on their campus every second, every minute, and every day while they're there. It's truly that immediate support. And that goes all the way from just understanding data, understanding improvement plans and different goals that are on the expected out of the site. And it's a quality program that 3 coaches are assigned that manages all of our site principals out there at our 32 schools. We also have instructional coaches, and we're excited to share with you, and this is not at every district, we're excited. We have a full-time release instructional coach at every single one of our schools, and that's exciting. And they're there to serve our teachers that have those needs when it comes to student data, instructional planning, classroom management, student and family relationships, along with a lot of other different topics. We also have technology coaches, and we have 3 of those that provide continuous support to all of our staff when it comes to not only just, hey, here's technology, it's the software as well, but how do you use it successfully in the classroom? So we're excited about that. We also have English learner coaches. We have 2 of those that coordinate with the ELO services to support for different uses and strategies throughout our school, and the actual administration of the Azella assessment. We also provide special educational coaches. And there's 5 special education coaches who support teachers and other staff throughout the district with IEPs, 504s, preschool, and just those everyday needs of understanding those challenges that are presented to us on a regular basis. The next slide is on social workers. I come from a similar sized district, and I'm excited to say not every district has what I'm getting ready to share with you. And this is powerful, specifically with what we're dealing with. And we have a social worker assigned to each one of our schools in this district. And they're there, their priority is that they deal with the social and emotional students' needs, and specifically with what we just went through this past year, we all did. What a great time to have those quality social workers in place to provide that level of service that those children need. I'd also like to share with that we offer a non-FMLA. This past year, the governing board, with your approval, you provided us an opportunity to extend a courtesy that is not typical when it comes to leaves, and you allowed us to help our staff members when they were dealing with COVID beyond an FMLA leave, and it was well received. And as you can see here, over 120 employees took advantage of that, and we were able to provide that need and nurture that. And that's important when you're dealing with financial needs and employment needs, and we definitely nurtured that, and that was approved by the governing board, so thank you for that. We have a loan forgiveness program. We're excited that there's a lot of different opportunities of different loans out there where, depending on the loan you have and the school you're at, will allow you to qualify for possibly loan forgiveness, and that's exciting, especially with the demand of how much it costs our young men and young ladies that go into the teaching profession. So we're excited about that. We'll also talk about in our retention that we provide professional growth for our teachers depending on the appropriate qualifying factors. there's an opportunity for them to take advantage of PD that will allow them to actually advance on the salary schedule, and that's within the district. We provide that. They don't have to go to college and pay for a course. There's things that there's classes and PD that we provide for our teachers to take advantage of that. And also, with the governing board's approval last year, we provided every staff member that returned this year a $1,000 stipend if they returned. And of course, that depended on their FTE. It was prorated. But based on the board's approval of that, thank you, by the way, we were able to do that, and that has already been generated, and it's going out to our staff. And finally, we have a Step Up, the program. It's for future instructional coaches. This is an opportunity that the Academic Services Department provides, where anybody that has that initiative or that drive or that vision or goals to wanting to be a part of an instructional coach at one day, it's a class that says this is how it works, this is what we do, and it's an opportunity for teachers to look at that career pathway and get them going in the right direction. And then finally, the last slide that I'll speak about are two topics, and it's really important, not only to me, but this entire school district is, our goal is to always communicate, collaborate, and cooperate at the level that provides every employee in this district an appropriate opportunity to provide input, be a part of a transparent consensus meeting, and to have intentional and meaningful active engagement when it comes to decision-making times, okay? And then I'll end on this, and this is the one thing that sold me, and thank you for picking me. This district picked me, but I also was sold on the fact that the word family is a word, but I actually got to see it, and I get to embrace it, and it's embraced me as well. And it's a tradition of support, work environment, and where everybody's treated like family. And so that is definitely something that's special to talk about, and definitely a good bullet point to end on. So I appreciate your time tonight to allow me to talk about the different things that Washington Elementary School District has to offer to retain our staff. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mattingly. Can we entertain some questions or comments from the board?
Absolutely, right?
Ms. Peterson?
Yeah, thank you for all that information. It's helpful to have it all in one place. Can you tell me a little bit more about the Begin program? So I know that's for new to the district teachers. Is that a one-year program for them? Does it continue on in different, how does that look? Or?
Yeah, if I can ask Dr. Bailey or Ms. Mora to step in, I think they can really give you a quality answer with me being new, if that's okay.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. It is a 3-year program. So the first year, obviously, it's our 0 to 1 year teachers who have just joined us. If we do have some 2 to 4 year experienced teachers that are new to the district that feel that they could benefit from that, we will take a look and see if we are able to accommodate as well. Those first year teachers then go on for a second year. And here again, the content changes and the support, varies a little bit because obviously progress for each one is a little bit different. And then they have the option of going on to the third year. And the third year then starts looking at building some leadership capacity and growing some additional skills. So it is a 3-year program that they are able to participate in.
So to be clear, if they're new to, it's really for new to teaching teachers, but new to the district teachers have the option to participate?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Peterson, also members of the board, it's actually in its 33rd year. As of, we just did a welcome to our, approximately about 100 teachers are now involved this year.
Anything else, Ms. Peterson?
So those teachers come back, so they're here. I mean, they're not here, obviously. Maybe they're here virtually, but they're not in this room with us. So they've started back. So it's a 2-week, 3-week. I don't even know how long till I have to go back to work. It's July. We don't have to know in July, right?
It actually starts back next. I'm sorry. It actually starts back next week.
Okay.
Yes.
So they have 2 weeks before
Yes.
the rest of the
Yeah.
staff returns. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Abbott-Biardi?
I do have some questions. just to follow up, Ms. Bailey, Dr. Bailey, with that, we've had something like that in the district for a while, though, right? But didn't we have something? I remember when my kids were at John Jacobs, teachers were like, "Oh, I have to go to my something. I'm a new teacher." Did we have something before it wasn't called Begin?
We could have, but it's 33rd year for Begin, so.
What is 33rd? Okay,
yeah.
I didn't hear the 33rd. I just heard
Yeah,
30.
so it's in its
Yeah, yeah.
33. But Ms. Biardi, it's gone through some evolution too, to tell you the truth. It didn't start off right away as 3 years.
Oh.
I actually was involved right from the beginning. I would like to say I was a starting teacher at the beginning, but I was
You were,
not.
you were.
Okay. So, but, it evolved in just like Ms. Morris said, the third year is really on teacher leadership and really developing that teacher leadership type of empowering teachers. And so it started as a 2-year, and then that third year has become extremely important as we're looking at leadership teams, as we're looking at curriculum leaders, so.
Okay, thank you. So just out of curiosity, thank you for your presentation so far. What is a typical retention rate for other districts our size? Do we know? I'm just curious.
That's a good question. I couldn't specifically answer that. I would say that it's impressive to be at 87% at the level and the number of teachers we have.
Is it? Okay.
It's pretty impressive for the hardship that education is enduring, and that's the lack of teachers out there.
Okay, thank you. And then okay, I had another couple questions here. There it is. So for the staff retention, the technology coaches, administration coaches, instructional coaches, who do they all report to, or who is their leader for each of those areas? I mean, I don't know if I need a specific name, but is there like a title, or is somebody in charge of all of these coaches?
For the different coaches, administrative coaches, those 3 report to me.
Okay.
So they work with the superintendent's department.
Okay.
The instructional coaches, the school instructional coaches report to the principal. The principal is the supervisor.
Okay, do they all go to like a meeting with instructional coach? And then who
Yes.
leads those meetings generally?
For the instructional coaches, that's actually through academic services, and Paula McWhorter actually works directly with the instructional coaches.
Okay, and then the technology,
That is Dr. Teresa Hernandez that works with the technology coaches. And then the special ed coaches, they're under special ed department under Dr. Koba, and specifically under Kara Fry.
okay, and then the English learner coaches?
They're under the new coordinator is Jessica Stevens.
Oh, yeah, Jessica, who took over for Kathy Gentry. Yeah, okay.
Exactly.
And then the social workers, they go to Dr. Koba too? No, they go to Dorothy?
The individual social workers are, it's actually a collaborative type of effort through not Dr. Watkins. Maybe she'd like to
Yeah.
be Dr.
Dr.
Watkins.
Dorothy
She is
Watkins.
actually working on it, so I actually gave her the degree
Congratulations
before
to
she
her.
got it,
Exactly
okay?
right.
So,
Dorothy
Miss
Watkins.
Watkins, and then also with the school principal.
Okay. And all those other people, they also report to their principal, but the meetings where they're given communication that comes from somewhere comes through these people to them, theoretically?
I'm sorry, sometimes weekly meetings, sometimes monthly meetings that are set up.
What's Jessica's last name? Our new person, Jessica
Stevens.
Stevens. Okay, thank you. Could you tell me what FTE is?
Yeah, it's a full-time employee.
Oh, thank you.
It identifies their hourly rate, basically, in layman's terms.
Okay, I was just curious. I thought.
I mean, not their hourly rate, but yeah, their hourly rate, the hours they work per week.
Okay. And another thing with the loan forgiveness, they may qualify for loan forgiveness opportunities. Is that something that we participate in through like the federal government, or is this communicated to people who might be able to qualify for that?
Yeah, we have that listed on our website, but it is a federal initiative, and we embrace that and try to make sure that we guide everybody that has a loan to see if they do qualify. And obviously, there's an opportunity to a variety of different loan forgiveness programs.
If I could, Ms. Biardi, members of the board, as Steve was mentioning, there's usually two loans. Your loans from year 0 to 5 teaching, loan forgiveness, that's for lots of people. If you make it to year 5, that's where the Title I kicks in, and that's where you actually can start to cut off chunks of money from your loan until you can get to 0.
Right.
So, and if you study the research on it, it's because it takes, if a teacher can make it to the 5th year, they believe that they can then stay on. A lot of the research says you got to work really hard those 0 to 5 years to get them to stay. And so that's where the federal loan program makes sort of sense, that at year 5, that's when it literally can start taking monies off. But that we do have loan forgiveness programs that start right from day 1.
So it just seems like in like the Begin program, that would be a good time to kind of cover all of these things, to let them know, and then also continue to have them spread the word that this is something that not only can they qualify for, because everyone could qualify if they stayed on for 5 years wherever they were, if there was Title I and so forth, but then to really, seems like, offer resources to people to help them, to support them on that journey. It seems like for retention, it would be good to really capitalize on some of these things and sell them for all that they're worth.
Yes, we, actually Lydia's not here, but when we have our first, usually teacher fairs in November, one of the districts that go very early, we actually use that as this is part of it, what you can get when you come to Washington. There's not, shall we say, in education, there's not many advantages to some people. We love Title I schools, some people, but this is something where you can actually then say, if you have a $35,000, which is the average student loan, you could actually stay with us, bring it down in your 0 to 5, bring the amount down and some of that. But then if you can get past year 5, you can really take chunks off. So it's something we actually market, and then we remind people all the time. There are some eligibility requirements, so I can't say everybody's in that perfect world. But Lydia and Steve's team do a very good job of making sure right from day 1 they know about it.
And then this is Lydia, call her if you have any questions. And, and so forth. You know what I mean? For the people as you tell them, so that they really know we push them, especially with all the talk over the last couple of years about loans, student loans and so forth. It just seems like this might be a great way to gather folks and retain them.
Yes.
That's all I have. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. And I'll also add some of the programs that we have where we're taking people that aren't currently certified, we're getting them to a degree with very little money out of their pocket with some of the other programs that we have, where we're taking people with a high school or a college or a high school diploma and getting them to the point where they can get their certificate, and then we are helping them with that cost in real time. So,
Vice President, could I just add a comment to that?
Yeah.
I will say kudos to the Bridge program. I'm not saying that there's a new Abbott in the workforce here at Acacia in 3rd grade, teacher with the Bridge program, but my niece did get hired with that because she came out of college with a communications degree from GCU and just couldn't fathom taking out more loans to get her teaching degree, although she wanted to be a teacher. So it's an awesome, awesome program. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to preface this that this is an area that's important to me. I have a PHR, Professional Human Resources, and recruitment retention is my jam. Like, that's the thing that I like to pay attention to. So I do have a few questions, but first I want to just, knowing just what I know, and at school, as you said, I came from a mental health background. We have this similar issues with turnover rates and retention in that field, but I think that seeing the programs that we have here, we talk about tiered interventions for our kids, but we really do have tiered interventions for our staff. There's a lot of fantastic programs here. When you look at why people stay, when you ask them what they want, it's always like money. But when you ask them why they stay, it's usually their peers or because they feel there's development and professional development opportunities. And I think that, and I've even seen over the last few years, I've been on the board 4 years, but even in the last 4 years, I've seen us grow the amount of opportunities. We also did the START program, which was to take some of those kids, take some of those younger teachers who are not coming from the School of Education, to give them a few years before they start the Begin program. So, we've really adapted, I think, to our circumstances, which is why I think we do have a good retention rate. What else did I want to say? I think that the coaching model that we have is really great, and I know that one of the things that I'd love to see is go from good to great. I know Ms. Mora and I were part of the teacher induction program with K-12 Center, trying to develop a study guide or a flow chart for induction program of teachers, and also induction program of the coaches, right, of the people that are going to be doing that. And a lot of the stuff Washington is already doing, so I look forward to using those standards to go from good to great in that area. So yeah, just a lot of kudos. I'm really happy with the programs, and also things that you don't have listed on here is I've seen an increase in opportunities to participate in district committee work. And an opening up of who participates instead of drawing from the same well or letting the same people stay. We've changed some things in that area too. So I think we're in the right direction when it comes to retaining teachers, and I'm really proud of the work that everybody in the district has done with that. Again, going from good to great, continuous improvement, there are some things that I have questions about. The first one is with retention rates. Now, data is always kind of tricky and depends on how you present it. We show an 87, 89, 80. That's year over year. Do you have a median years of service, meaning how long are they staying with us before they leave? Because we have so many great programs. I'm curious to see the turnover rate after they hit their 3rd to 5 years. And as Dr. Stanton said, many teachers do leave after 0 to 5 years. So my question is, while 87, 89% looks good, and that's the number most districts would use the same way that you're doing it, which is a year over year, if you're really trying to dig in and find opportunities, you'd want to look at those median turnover times. So do you have any idea what that looks like?
Madam Vice President, Governing Board members, I do not have that data in front of me. I think that's a fair question and definitely a reasonable conversation. So I appreciate exposing that. I think that's something that I certainly can look into.
Okay. Other thing that I have is with the staff climate survey that we do, we also stay in around the 80% satisfaction, strongly agree on that survey. And that survey, and I can't come to mind all the questions that are on that survey. But what I noticed, we have all these things that we say are contributing to staff retention, but we don't really know that they're contributing, or to what degree they're contributing, or which one of these is most effective in maintaining retention. And what I noticed, or recalling what's on that evaluation, we don't really do a good job of asking people if these are the reasons why they're staying or not. We might think this is why they're staying, but we're not really asking them on that staff satisfaction survey if these are the reasons why they're staying or not. And so I'm just wondering, food for, I know this is a discussion item, but I know this is also a part that the board had questions on in terms of a future strategic planning and kind of priorities and where we want to go. Recruitment and retention is one of those. So just kind of asking if there's been any thought to look at that tool and to make it more aligned to, like, hey, if we have this strategy as listed as a retention strategy, is it in fact contributing to retention, or do we just have all these things and we don't really know? We just think they are.
Madam Vice President, Governing Board members, certainly you said something that really was spot on. Support is huge in any company, and I will tell you, in education research definitely shows that support is running a 1 or 2 close what they need. And being in the education business, these different programs and different things that we've provided certainly plays a role in our retention. The specificity that you're asking and detailing through either our survey processes or our understanding that this is truly, a data point that is retaining, that's something I don't have the answer tonight for you.
And I do appreciate that. I was not able to connect with you. We weren't able to find a time to connect prior to this. So I certainly appreciate that this was probably going to be a future conversation, but wanted to put that out there. So the last thing that I kind of wanted just to say about staff retention is we are doing really well, but we're in a climate that we can't afford to lose anybody, and we want to get as many as possible. So that would be my overall, like as I was looking through this, is I would really like to see us develop metrics and tools to measure how effective our strategies are. And I would also like to look at trends over time. I am concerned that we may be investing all of this money into teachers in the Begin program, the START program, and then if they leave, why are they leaving? Why are they staying with us while they're getting that first year support and then leaving? And I don't know the numbers, but I know Mr. Wing had previously said that we do have people that will leave after the first few years. Why? And having some of that data and aligning our climate and satisfaction survey to some of those strategies. That's all I have, and I really do appreciate you coming up here. You're not being familiar with all these, and it's very pleasant to see how excited you are about the work we're doing here from an outside coming from the outside. It does just reiterate and make us all feel like, yeah, we are kind of doing a really good job in this area. So thank you.
My pleasure, Madam Board President.
Board members, any further?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I did have a couple other questions. I didn't know we were going all of our questions at once. So I wanted to ask about opportunities for leadership for someone who chooses to stay in the classroom. So I recognize that you have, after your third year, how do you become a leader? And you can become an assistant principal by going through our Aspire program. That's great. I want to stay in the classroom. I want to be with kids, but I also want to make sure that I have a voice and that I have opportunities for leadership and collaboration outside of, those immediate spaces that I'm in. What opportunities exist for a teacher or a support staff in that situation?
Ms. Peterson, I'll go ahead and start. So one thing, many of our schools have leadership teams established on their campuses, and that is an opportunity for teachers who have a desire to be more involved in some of those leadership decisions to take part in that. There's also some of the committees that Ms. Whaley mentioned that we are encouraging teachers to be a part of and serve on. There are also professional development opportunities, and this is something that we did expand, and I think the virtual world helped us a little bit, but on some of our Green Day sessions, we actually got some teachers who were interested in maybe doing professional development, not always confident to stand in front of a large group, but felt comfortable navigating some lessons. And so our team has been really looking for those teachers with exemplar strategies that we want to highlight to be a part of professional development. And then we do have some other opportunities. I don't know if Dr. Bailey, you want to share about those that are aspiring to go on to other leadership pieces.
Madam Vice President, members of the board, just like Lori said, that there are some other opportunities. Site council is another opportunity for teachers to get involved. We have a after-school academy, and so some teachers are involved in that, but they're also coordinators or outreach specialists, so that lends itself to empowering some types of leadership types of skills or management types of skills. Summer committees that people have been involved in, the curriculum committees. We're now starting an assessment committee looking at the interim assessments. So teachers are being recruited and being involved in that. So certainly we want teachers that are master teachers to stay in the classroom and to really provide some type of other areas to get involved and to empower them. So we're always looking for other types of opportunities. We realize that certainly an Aspire is not the maybe the career opportunity that people want to get involved in. So how can we get those teachers outside the classroom and really working with other teachers? There's mentor teachers that they get involved in. Begin teachers have mentors that they are involved in. So it's really looking at a lot of different opportunities.
So just to be clear, a Begin teacher would have the instructional coach on their campus that is the instructional coach, but has a lot of, other responsibilities as well. And then they would also have a mentor that they'd be paired with on their team or something like that. Is that kind of the idea, the goal of that?
They also have a cadre leader that works with them, whether they're in a first grade cadre or a second grade cadre. So they
district-wide sort
Yes.
of mentor.
Yes.
And those mentors, is there a stipend for that? Is that like we do it out of the kindness of our hearts?
Well, they probably don't get reimbursed.
The stipend is not enough, but is there some sort of compensation?
So it probably is out of the kindness of their heart, but they do get a stipend.
The first 2 hours are paid, the other hours are out of the kindness of their heart. Okay. Okay. And then as far as the district committee work, I've heard a lot about the curriculum committees, and are those fairly new under the pandemic schooling? Is that something we've always had and we've just had to ramp it up? And then also, how are teachers, is that an application process? How are those advertised to people to become a part of?
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. That's a great question. No, we've had committees in place for many years, and there's always curriculum work during the summer, updates, working on assessments, a variety of pieces. So that work has been consistent. What was new to the pandemic this year was the teacher teams we brought together to create lessons and to really do a lot of that work. It was nice to see, as Dr. Bailey said, more teachers getting involved than in the past, and so I would say that's a positive outcome of the pandemic, is that we had increased opportunities for some of that committee work. But yeah, we've definitely had curriculum work going on every summer.
Okay. And do you see that increase due to the pandemic something that we're going to continue, or something that we've kind of gotten through? And just curious.
Yeah, I would say we've learned an awful lot about the value of having teachers involved in that curricular process. So we would like to continue, and I know the second part of your question that I didn't answer was, how do they get selected for committees? And we do start with recommendation from administration. We obviously want teachers that are skilled and have demonstrated the ability to teach effectively, but also considering what other things they have on their plate and not overloading. So we start with really, administrative recommendation, and our administrators have been amazing. I mean, they've done a nice job of, being selective, but also opening opportunities and encouraging some teachers that maybe wouldn't have just thought they could do that and volunteer them, but to kind of guide them and say, you'd be a great part of that. So, so we do foresee expanding and continuing, including teachers in our processes. And that is something that we want to move forward and continue and learned well from during the pandemic.
And I just have one more question about the PD that's created for the Green Days. Well, I guess it's a two-part question. Number one, why are they called Green Days? Is it like a band reference, a stoplight reference, a tree reference? Lots of options. I just wanted to know why it was called that. And then also, the creation of that PD, is that primarily fall to district office leadership? Does that primarily fall to instructional coaches? How does the creation of that PD work?
Well, I'd like to say it's a reference to the Green Day Band because they're good, but I think it was the color that was selected to put on the calendar every month. I mean, I think it was that simple. So there were blue days and green days, and I did ask that question when I first arrived in this district. So
What I spend my time thinking about.
exactly. So yes, that's why it's Green Day. The development of the content for those professional developments is kind of twofold. It definitely, the instructional coaches, all of our specialists, those that are out in the schools, we look at data and the trends and what we see as being needed out there. We also get input from our PLA Planning Committee, which is a group of administration that comes together along with district leaders to really identify what are those needs that we need to support with our teachers. During the pandemic, we also really looked at offering additional choice, and here again, I think the online platform allowed us to not have to worry about the travel, some of the logistics of rooms and buildings, and so we were able to offer a lot more options for our teachers and sessions. Here again, this is something that I think we've learned well from COVID, and we'd like to continue forward with looking at that. But getting as much input from stakeholders too as what teachers need during those sessions is extremely important.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Whaley.
Thank you, Mr. Mattingly. I believe Dr. Bailey will be walking us through student retention.
Ms. Whaley, I have a quick question, or suggestion maybe. Do you want to have like a suggestion box for PD? That'd be kind of fun. Just a little box right here. People could put in ideas. It's a suggestion for a suggestion box. When people are in, they could put a little something if they had some ideas or something. Maybe they didn't feel comfortable talking to the principal, or they just, There you go.
Thank you. Okay, Dr. Bailey.
Madam Vice Chair, members of the board, participants here, thank you. It's difficult to to come after Mr. Mattingly. Great speaker. So thank you for allowing us to talk a little bit about student retention. And what you see right here in front of you is basically, hopefully, is the a 5-year comparison. And you can see that there was a slow decline for the first 3 years, and now we're in a decline that is not as slow as we would really like it. And you can certainly see, especially the last year, which you're knowledgeable about, that we've lost over 2,000 students. Right now, as of July 19th, we are at 20,549 students and still registering valiantly, both online and in person. When we did a, Central Registration has, for the last couple of years, has actually done an exit interview and gone back to our stakeholders, our families that have actually left, and said, why did you leave the school district? The number one reason was that they left the area. They left our Washington Elementary School area. The number two is that they actually left the state. And we didn't probe any deeper, but some did indicate a economic type of decision that was part of it. So that gives you a little bit more information on that. What I'd like to do is to actually go through some of the areas. Are you doing it or am I? Okay, thank you. What I'd like to do is actually go through some areas that I think are critical as far as student retention. And I did not prioritize this and put this in a specific order. I put them alphabetically, so there's no priority on that. But I'd like to really go through some both district and school type of programs or areas that we think really do retain students. One of them is the after-school program, and that's through our after-school academy that we, for this year, will have in 20 schools, and it is a very viable type of program where they really work with students in a small group type of basis. There's reading, math, and also a STEM focus that we're continuing on for this year. Our athletic programs have gone from the areas of like volleyball and softball. We have soccer, cross country. We actually about 4 or 5 years ago started with 5th and 6th grade students, so those are programs for 5th through 8th grade students. We also have tournaments that a lot of our actual programs actually are part of specific tournaments. Cardinals Academy is one academy that is actually at one of our schools. It's at Royal Palm School. It's for our 5th through 8th grade students. The reason why it is named Cardinals, it is actually partially funded by the Cardinals Football Foundation. That was started probably, I'd say, 10 years ago. And the emphasis is on working with students in a small group type of basis. It's a real team approach. There's 4 teachers that work with those students in a team approach. I think one of the areas to look at retention also is that unlike some school districts that have just a K-8 type of configuration or a specific K-6, 7, 8, we actually have both K-8 and K-6 middle school type of configuration. So that does offer some choices for parents. We have early childhood enrichment, as you know, that we believe to get students early. One of the major programs that we have is early child enrichment. That's what we call our ECE program. That is open to 4-year-old programs, 4-year-old students. It is actually supervised through our basically through our academic support program in the school district. Quality first. First things first really provides the majority of scholarships because this is a fee-based program. This is a full-day program for our 4-year-old students. And what we've found is that those students that are part of the 4-year-old program stay with our school and then continue on in kindergarten and beyond. We have enrichment programs that again are through academic support or through our facility usage, and it's some interest areas like karate and soccer and chess, so different type of enrichment programs in our schools. We have extracurricular activities, whether it's National Junior Honor Society or Student Council, some gardening clubs. Again, looking at the interest in the specific schools and trying to work with students or in those interest areas. The Flex Center is actually at Choya, and that is a gifted program that is at Choya for identified students. It is really focuses on specific plans for those students, really looking at acceleration, specifically in the reading, the math, and the science area. One of the areas that had historically in our school district has been our special needs programs, and parents have actually stated that they move into our school district because of the wide range of variety of special needs, whether it's to deal with physical or behavioral or academic types of needs of students. We offer occupational therapy, physical therapy, a wide range of services, and we really work with parents and as well as the team approach to really look at what is best in the best interests of students. Full-day kindergarten we have full-day kindergarten. We've historically had full-day kindergarten, as you know, that is not fully funded by the state, but we do have full-day kindergarten, and so we make sure that that is a major part of our beginning school approach to our students. I talked a little bit about the Flex Center. Well, our Gifted Learning Center, which is called GLC, is actually at Saguaro School. So the Saguaro students actually then move to Choya, and that again is a team approach for our students. The 4 teachers that are in that program really work together. It is a not a graded program. It really is looking at the schools graded as far as like first, second, third. It really is a multi-graded type of program. But I talked about the Flex and I talked about the GLC, but in every single one of our schools, we have gifted programs for identified students. And those are students that are specifically identified, and we're looking at both acceleration and enrichment for those students. I talked a little bit about the ECE program, but we also have a Head Start, and Head Start is in 15 of our schools. We have a Head Start director that works with those teachers. The teachers in the Head Start program are fully certified, early childhood certified teachers. And they do a lot of work with parent engagement as part of their program. KidSpace is in a number of our schools, actually 25 out of our K-6 and K-8 schools. The exceptions are Mountain View and Sunny Slope, which have a PAC program there. The hours for KidSpace are hopefully meet the demands of our working parents from 6:30 to 6 p.m. In one of our schools, a nationally recognized program called Leader in Me. And Leader in Me is actually based on the 7 habits of highly effective people. And the students right from kindergarten start to deal with what are those 7 habits, and really that becomes part of the climate and culture of that school. In one of our schools, we have what we call a learning lounge that is actually at Royal Palm School. It is taught, the instructor actually come from Grand Canyon University. They are actually students in Grand Canyon, and they're really very, very good role models, and they tutor our students mostly in the area of math. And we have one of our Cardinals Academy actually instructors that oversees that program along with GCU personnel. And the next part I'm going to talk a little bit is on open enrollment. We have, needless to say, it is a state mandate for open enrollment, and we do have a number of students that are on open enrollment. So if we can open that, thank you. I appreciate that. Right now, we have as of 1920. I'm sorry, but 2021 was a total different year, so as far as looking at open enrollment. But at 1920, we had 4,491 students that were on open enrollment. And that does not include Abraham Lincoln, which is total open enrollment, because they have approximately 603 students there, as well as Sweetwater, which has about 350 students that are coming in from other schools. I wanted to put actually the top open enrollment schools. The first number that you see there are both in district and out of district, and the percentage of students that are open enrollment. And then in the next couple of areas, you see the number of students for out of district, and then the percentage, and then the number of students, the last graph you see for in-district. So you can see that we have both in-district and out-of-district open enrollment. So if we were to put a number on total open enrollment, if including basically the Abraham Lincoln and Sweetwater, it would be 5,444 students. So that's quite a few in-district and out-of-district open enrollment students. And we follow the state guidelines for open enrollment, so that if there is capacity within the grade level, then there's an application process, then they can be open enrolled in that specific school. The next area that I'd like to go into is PBIS, which stands for Positive Behavior Intervention and Support. Right now, it's in 16 of our schools, and that has been built up in the last 5 years. We started with 3 schools, and we're continuing to actually really promote this program. We found that schools that become part of this program, they are seeing a difference in climate and culture, as well as behavioral types of data. So PBIS and the Rich Morris, who's one of the administrative coaches, is the lead on this. He also works with our social worker, Ms. Watkins, as well as with our climate and culture coordinator. We have a number of performance programs those are choral and orchestra programs that we think that promote the interest levels of our students, and at certain times of the year that they have performances. Mr. Mattingly talked about social workers. We're very proud that this year is the first year that we can say that in every single school we have a social worker, with the addition of our Lookout Mountain social worker. So, and they provide services, a multitude of services. That's extremely important to note. We have, in one of our schools, Mountain Sky, we have what we call a STEM and Entrepreneur program, and that is a 2-year program that students choose whether they want to go into a STEM or entrepreneur type of track. And they're specifically with the STEM, we're really looking at science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, the theory, and then the practice behind it. The entrepreneur program, they really look at economics, and actually in the 8th grade year, they actually come up with a business plan. So those are 2 in one of our schools. Every single school has student recognition. It really comes organically through the program. How do we recognize students? How do we do it through attendance? How do we do it through behavior types of academics? So really looking at really recognizing students. Our summer school program, and I've talked to you probably during the last 3 or 4 board meetings. You probably don't want to hear any more about our summer school program, but we have had the summer school program every single year, but this year is the first year that we've had it actually in the 32 schools, really looking at an hour of reading, an hour of math, an hour of STEM activities, actually activity kits, and then an hour of social and emotional for this year. And then traditional school, Abraham Lincoln. I know you have visited Abraham Lincoln, and these students that attend there, again, that's an open enrollment from both in district and out of district, and in a K-8 type of environment. They actually have the same standards that every other school district, every other school in our district has, but they use different resources, different materials, and even sometimes different strategies. And last but not least, the RIC, and that's what's stated as Washington Resource Instructional Center. This is actually funded by First Things First. It's actually centered in 3 of our schools, but it's for our whole district, and it's for 0 to 5 years of age students and parents. There's parent meetings. They provide services to the parents. They're a resource center for parents. They interact. They have classes for how to read to your children. They actually bring the young children in. So it's a very viable program. Actually, it was the first resource center in Maricopa County. So a lot of people come actually to the RIC to actually look at it as a role model. And there is one other area that I did not bring, and I should have brought up with because I think it's extremely important for some of our students. When I talked about open enrollment, I did not bring up McKinney-Vento, and I think it's critical to talk to you a little bit about that, because that is retaining students. So, in fact, I just got these statistics from Ms. Watkins. In 1920, we had 610 students that were classified under the homeless McKinney-Vento, and 430 of those we transported to keep them in their school stable environment rather than go into another school or another school district. So we provided transportation for them, and that's due to J.J. Spellman and his unbelievable transportation. Also, in the 1920 year, a new regulation came out for foster children, trying to keep them in their environment too. So for the first year, 1920, we only had 5 students because it was just starting. That program was just starting, and to be knowledgeable about it. Last year, even though we were in a pandemic situation, those students actually were part of our on-site support. So we were 21 students that through that foster program. So again, trying to keep those students in a stable school environment. So thank you. If you have questions, I'd certainly be willing to entertain them.
Thank you, Dr.
Hopefully
Bailey.
as well as Mr. Mattingly.
So I just want to note the time is 6:34. We do have our regular governing board meeting at 7. So to Ms. Peterson's point, I think maybe if we can prioritize our top 2 questions at first, and then see how far we can get so that we can start our meeting on time. Ms. Abbott-Biardi, would you like to begin? Or would you like Ms. Peterson?
Okay, so where do I want to begin? So you talked about some of the programs that we have that I know we don't, I'm going to call them magnet programs, even though that might not be the term we want to use. But we have our GLC, we have our Flex, and you also talked about programs that exist only on certain campuses. So the science stuff that exists at Mountain Sky, that's super amazing. And I actually, years and years ago, was at a parent something thing where they presented and talked about how wonderful it was. and the amazing robotics program that used to be at Orangewood, and the tutoring from GCU and the program at Sweetwater. So those sound like amazing programs, and they're in one school, and we have 32. So what are we doing to facilitate the growth of those types of things? So where one school sees success, are there ways for those programs to grow out of that school to other places? Or are they pet projects of a few teachers, and we're using them here to say what a great job the district's doing, when really it's these few teachers that are growing those programs? So how can we?
I don't think they're pet projects of certain teachers. I think that organically they came through some type of, whether it was leadership there or site council showing some type of, specifically like at Mountain Sky, some type of feeling that, that there should be some programs that are geared towards that. I do think that we probably could do a better job of actually probably publicizing all of the programs that we have. I think that with PBIS starting, they're starting to see, we're seeing more and more schools actually come under that PBIS guideline. It takes for PBIS about 12 to 18 months to actually get the framework started and a lot of stakeholder type of input. We probably can publicize a little bit more on some of the programs.
Yeah, and I would love to see those things grow. So PBS is this huge national thing that's on fire all over, and Rich Morris at Chaparral kind of started it there with us, and I was there. I couldn't be a bigger fan of what Rich Morris did with PBIS at Chaparral. So I appreciate that, and that obviously has grown. But I would just love for us to see. And it speaks also to staff retention, right? So like if I have this program that I've worked on and that I'm really proud of, and I can say, it worked for us, come to a presentation, come learn, let's create a team, maybe 3 other schools want to start it, and our team can be the model and facilitate that. I think it would be a win for both staff and student retention, is to not just have those programs in one place where they look great. So I appreciate your answer to that, though I know that's, there's a million things to do. The other question I had is about, is it possible for you to pop back up the open enrollment percentages and numbers? There it is. So what I think, actually, I'm interested in the out-of-district one. Yeah, right there. So I'm not allowed to see them. That's okay. If I remember correctly, are we?
Do you want a copy?
Why don't I? Okay. I got it. So if I remember correctly, if we're looking at those out-of-district enrollments, there's some patterns there, right? So like Lookout Mountain and Mountain Sky, those are in the same neighborhood. We know why those have out-of-district transplants, right? Sunset is the closest school to Glendale Elementary. Mm-hmm. I think that is there. Sunburst is also on a border. So
with Deer Valley. Yeah,
and in a community that is, sort of unique. Definitely, that Sunburst community is pretty unique. Acacia, to me, is the outlier there. I know that it has won many, many awards. Acacia is literally just down the road from me. I have to cross a busy road to get there, but it's less than half a mile from my house. And I know I've met Christine Hollingsworth, the principal there. I've seen that. Acacia, though, if I remember correctly, grew immensely in the time, in the last, 6 or 8 years, whatever that timeline is. So again, I guess my question is, that's great for Acacia, but what is Acacia doing? Because it's in a neighborhood that is a nice neighborhood, but I mean, it looks like every other school in our district. It's in the heart of a neighborhood like every other school in our district. So I want to know how they are number 2 out of district, and what can we do at all the other schools to get those numbers up again? Because those are the kids I want. I mean, I don't mind if our open district kids are going to other schools. My kids do, just because it's more convenient for our family. But those out of district kids that are choosing Washington L, I want to know why they're choosing Washington L, and I want to find their friends and bring them here as well. Because we have so much to offer, but they have to make that choice to really understand that. So I just look at that Acacia number, and I just want to go there and be like, okay, tell me all the things. And I have heard some of her things, and and the things that they're doing there that are amazing, the staff. But that to me is, again, what can we do to replicate that number at more of our schools.
She,
So.
first of all, they are not only A-plus school for the third time, okay, so you get a lot of recognition for that, and
Right.
true, I mean, the school is unbelievable. They've also had national recognition, so they've actually gone to Washington and national Title I type of school, so they have received a lot of recognition, and they do a lot of outreach, I'll be honest with you. They really do a lot of outreach, not only Miss Hollingsworth, but her teachers, you know, so, and kudos to her. I mean, kudos to, you know, the school is excellent and great climate and culture, but you are right. She and her staff do an excellent job in working with students, and I think a lot of the other schools do too. So, you know, but they're not maybe having that same area of recognition. That's why it was so exciting for us when Ocotillo got the A+ recognition, because I think more and more of our schools need to look at that, because they are really should be recognized for what they're doing with students.
Absolutely, and I don't want to take away from what anyone else is doing, and I
Right.
don't mean to say Acacia. That's my point. Acacia isn't a better school than our other schools, right? Like, they are all great places to send your kids. Like I said, I could drive my kids to Acacia if I really thought it was the best school in the world for every kid in America. But I send my kids to a different school in the district because I believe all of our schools have the power to be, you know, should be, not that they have the power to be great. They are great, and they should be recognized for that by, you know, having full classrooms, and we need more teachers and stealing from other places. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Abbott Biardi.
Yes, thank you for the overview, Dr. Bailey. I do piggyback what Lindsay said, I think in her first question, which is, these are amazing programs, and after going to the schools, they are all doing an awesome job. I wish that we had more of these programs at every single school, and I don't know if it's a funding thing. We don't have the stipends to give for these things, or we don't have teachers who specialize in STEM or something, and I was wondering why aren't those things available at Royal Palm and Desert Foothills, and why is it not like a district priority, like STEM's going to be a priority for all middle school kids as something to offer for their elective? I don't know if that's something that, or is everything site-based driven? I don't know how these programs come about in different schools.
Well, first of all, for STEM, and I probably could have Lori talk about it, we have an amazing science instructional coach, and she's already making a difference in really getting a STEM into our schools. So I think you may see a difference even if I come back here next year and talk about this. Okay. So she presented to our principals last week, and I just think that we're really going to see much more of a STEM approach than we ever have, and it's really due to her leadership, as well as she worked with a curriculum group during the summer, and so that they really are geared up to really looking at that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you. And then the other thing, sort of, I think what Lindsay was saying, Ms. Peterson, that one of the things is, as we were going through all of this information, I've received a few things in the mail from a sister district encouraging us to go to that district. I'm like, I know Dr. Stanton loves that. But what I've noticed in all of these things that we do, I'm like, these are awesome. How do we get this to every family that lives in our district? I'm not saying they all go to our schools, but how do we get all of this information out to them? And sorry, my computer. And or can we get like a mailer before school starts with all of these things? Because you look at this, you go, oh my gosh, our district's awesome. As somebody who gets a mailer in the mail, you would see this and think, well, maybe I really would like my kids to go to their neighborhood school or our neighborhood district. And or should we, as just an idea, focus on each community and what they offer, so that you keep those kids who either are on the borderline and maybe go to the same church with other kids, and then, oh, you know, this is what we do at our district. Oh, you know, I didn't know that. Do you have any information on that? Oh yeah, I got a flyer in the mail, something like that. But how do we market all the amazing things we do to get our kids back that are our kids and keep our kids in that are our kids. I just wonder if there's a better way to market, even in a community, to those homes that are there, or apartment complexes and so forth. So I don't know if that's
So
a
there was
question
no
or how do we
question
do
there.
it.
That was a lot of statements, but you're just looking for,
Well, I just am throwing out some ideas. I'm like, if we're trying to talk about retention and student retention, how do we keep the kids that live in our district, and how do we not lose them? Because we're doing amazing things. I mean, these are amazing things we have. And if you had if there's a way to market, I don't know what kind of marketing we do to get the kids that are in our district and keep them.
Yeah. I think that there's certainly ways that we've done, and that we probably need to explore and continue. Going into the apartment complexes, going into some of our faith-based type of programs. I was just talking to the new Ironwood principal, and she's gone to 5 of her faith-based programs right within that Ironwood area. Okay, made herself known and said, what way can I get the message out about Ironwood? So I think that there's certainly ways in really looking at, because we have such an unbelievable product, first of all, and that we really do need to look at making sure that our community knows that we're here and we're here to stay, and we want to serve your students.
Madam President or Vice President, just quick, I know we're running out of time, so I want to make sure I get to Ms. Whaley's questions, but I do want to point something out, Ms. Abbott Biardi, that you said. Ms. Hollingsworth is an incredible outreach. She also is an instructional leader, par excellence, but her ability to outreach by hand-to-hand shaking, going into her community, it's hard to replicate that. So one thing I do think we do need to look at, how do we market and do that type of thing, but it is at that granular level, at the school level, and when we've seen her team go out into the community and say challenge a school down the road on the I-17 freeway that tried to challenge her, and she actually got all the kids back, it's because it took many years, and she's extremely skilled. I want to point out that it's hard to replicate Christine. Okay, I'll just put it to you that way, that we have great principals in this district, that many others are doing that. So we got to figure out a way to get everybody involved to go out and do that kind of outreach. There are other outreaches. I will say to you, unfortunately, mailers in the mailbox, about a 1% to 2% return rate. So just keep that in mind, that we do get a lot of those, but the real way you do it is at the granular level, handshaking, talking to the people in your neighborhood. And that's something we could definitely look at, because we have schools that are talented, are great. We just got to get it out there. And then, but again, it's what we've learned over time. It's actual hand-to-hand, individual people, and it's not the soup. Although during a certain event, when we had to go for a bond, this team right here went out there and hit many homes, okay, on our own time and our own ways. But it's about those individuals getting out there and reaching out to the community, and us, by the way, going to other organizations as well. So that's something that's another topic for a study session. I know it's on there, so I didn't want to take Ms. Whaley's time. I think we got plenty of time, hopefully, for what you want to ask. But please keep that in mind. It's just that granular level is a big way to do that.
thank you. I did have some of the similar concerns, and one of the things that I've seen it's gotten a little bit better as we try to get people, even though we have 32 campuses, and for a long time they were 32 islands, is my understanding. And we are starting to get to a point where we're kind of all playing from the same playbook. There's some autonomy, there's some things that you can adjust to the needs of the teachers and the desires of that local community. But I know that I for one have advocated, and I have seen where we're trying to things that are good and should be available to all students, we're making sure that some of those things are happening. But I do think when it comes to our programs, I do not think we equitably distribute our programs. And to just simply say, well, if we told everybody about this awesome program at Cholla, they would come. Well, no, some people have to go to the school that's near them, so they should be able to access the same types of opportunities regardless of what school is closest to them. And so that's a funding issue, right? We can't replicate all of these programs at every school, but I'll go back to the data again, and you said like it's based on student interest. I don't know the last time my students got a survey of what kind of programs or clubs they wanted at their school. I don't know the last time I got a survey that said what kind of, programs would keep you staying here. So when you talk about that granular part, yes, I think we need, if we want our families to choose us and to stay with us, then we need to be giving them more say and more opportunity to tell us and help us guide it. I think that we're still pretty closed off and the campus decides, and maybe a couple parents, but we are not really maximizing the full community, and we're definitely not maximizing our students who will advocate to stay at their school if they care that much about it. So I would say, as a recommendation, as we look forward to, starting to strategize around student things, is one, pick a few things that we believe every district or every school should have access to so that there's equity in the opportunities that are available. And then two, doing a lot more in real-time adjustments to what the communities need, instead of just saying, well, we've had this program at this school for so many years, and people like, that's great, but what else do they need? And so that would be my recommendation, because that's how we keep, that's retention. That's not necessarily even recruitment. Recruitment's a whole other thing, where Ms. Biardi was talking about is letting people know, I'll let you know that I am an Acacia parent. And I chose that school when I knew I was going to be moving to this district, and I didn't know where in the district I was going to be moving. And like I would say the majority of our parents, I picked it because it was a nice school. And at that point, not being on the board, not knowing anything about it, all I knew is A is good, right? C is not. And when I got on the board, I realized, wow, these C schools are working their butts off. They're doing some amazing things. And the level of the quality of services that they're getting, is on par, right? But you don't know that coming from an outside perspective. So in terms of a recruitment strategy is, I think, completely different than our retention strategy. And so I think we need to keep those two things separate.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we are at 6:52. Is there any other burning comments or questions from the board? Okay, then we will do a brief recess before we begin our regular scheduled meeting at 7 o'clock. Good evening. Welcome to the July 22nd, 2021 regular scheduled school board meeting. We will begin this meeting. I don't know if I knocked this. There you go. So Ms. Tucker, can we do a roll call?
Governing Board members present, Governing Board Vice President Nikki Whaley, Governing Board members Ms. Jenny Abbott Bayardi and Ms. Lindsay Peterson.
Thank you. Let's take a moment of silence and meditation. Thank you. Join me in saying the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. May I have a motion for the adoption of the July 22nd regular meeting agenda?
So move.
Thank you. May I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Next, item E, can I get an approval of the regular and executive session meeting minutes from July 8, 2021?
So move.
Thank you, Ms. Abbott Biardi. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Current events and acknowledgements, board members. Ms. Peterson.
Sure. I just wanted to welcome those back who have come back. We're not going to meet again until after the first of the school year, well into it. We'll be just moving like a well-oiled machine at the next board meeting. So advance welcome to our begin teachers who I just found out are coming back on Monday. What an exciting time to come back that first year in your classroom, and so exciting. And then the rest of our faculty and staff that'll come back on the 2nd, and our students are coming back. So I'm not quite ready to start thinking about next week and the week after yet, but it's exciting to come back and to have our kids back in our rooms. And so welcome back, everybody, and hit the ground running. We're going to have a great year. So.
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Ms. Abbott Biardi?
Yes, kudos to the bridge program that started this week. I believe the brand new teachers were at Palo Verde this week for training, and I know they have another week of that as well, like with the begin people as well. So thank you so much to everybody who's a part of that and the excitement and enthusiasm. My niece is a part of that, and I'm very thrilled that she's in that program. So welcome to all the new people into our district, and also best of luck at the start of school, and lots of rest for you, and hopefully not scary dreams for the teachers as they come back the night before they come back to the kids. So I'm very excited for this new school year.
Thank you, Ms. Abbott Biardi. I echo the sentiment. I'm really excited for the school year. I also want to acknowledge it was a rough end of the previous year, and there's mixed feelings of coming back amongst some of the other things that we'll be discussing later tonight. So I want to just acknowledge you all for rolling with it, and also make space for the fact that there could be mixed emotions out there. So thank you for continuing to show up for our students and with supporting one another. With that, I will turn it over to the superintendent.
Madam Vice President, members of the board, members of the audience, it is, as you have all stated correctly, a busy time of year. The anticipation of what's coming, but also the activity that's happening now. We completed our PLA 3-day return. I see quite a few people in the audience that presented with our administrators and our instructional coaches that ended this past week, and I want to thank the whole PLA planning, plus I know there's so many people behind the scenes, so thank you to everyone that was involved in getting the PLA set up, getting it prepared, getting it planned, and doing the follow-through. It's a major undertaking. And we used Arroyo, obviously a school that we've actually built recently, was able to handle about 100 people, and we could still get 3 feet of distancing. So kudos to Philip and his team over there as well. Did get a chance to go to Maricopa County ESA to work with Steve Watson and learn. He asked superintendents to come in and give him suggestions and things like that. So I got a chance to work with about 13 other superintendents. We had new administrators training, so we had our newbies show up, and I want to thank the team that actually presented and worked on planning for our what's called our new administrators, or NAT. We've got some great talent. As Dr. Bailey says, we probably had the deepest bench we've had in many, many years. So kudos for those of you that are preparing them. Kudos that are you that selected them. I do agree, it's extremely talented. We had our classified job fair, and I want to thank HR department and all the work they put in. It happened in Arroyo on Monday. So please, Steve, if you make sure everybody would say thank you, because I know that took a lot of work and preparation. And it looked like, at least some of the early numbers, we had some good successes at some of our schools. So that's fantastic as well. We actually did our begin video today, and for anybody who's been a part of that, it's beautiful. Dr. Westhoff led it, and we introduced many of our current team members that are in the audience and some of us. And I think it was beautiful. It really talked about the WSD family, and so that's a beautiful event. And we share that with our new begin people, excuse me. And then I do want to thank the team that was working, our bridge coaches that were working with our bridge teachers, year 1 and year 2 folks over at Palo Verde. We got a chance, a lot of us, to get in front of them. Again, many people in the audience, thank you for all that effort and energy. As you can see, we have quite a bit of support in the Washington Elementary School District, and just wanted to share some of those. So it is onward and upward. Here we go. And sorry if you're not ready for that, Ms. Peterson, but thank you for the opportunity for sharing a little bit.
Thank you, Dr. Stanton. And now we're going to go back to you with our Golden Apple Award. We are recognizing assessment and evaluation, curriculum and instruction, and federal programs.
Madam Vice President, members of the board, members of the audience, this is an honor that we've continued the tradition on. Thank you for doing this. First, we'll start with our assessment evaluation. Carrie and Laura D. will be accepting this award this evening. So, student data is a key component of an effective instructional program and a large task in a district the size of Washington Elementary. Due to the impact of school closure during the pandemic, the ability to assess students and collect the necessary data to support student instruction was complicated. I think that's an understatement. It was really hard to do. Under the leadership of Dr. Carrie Giovanni and the assessment department navigated the best way to provide assessments for students in our online learning program. Working collaboratively with school administration and campus instructional assistants, students completed the WSD benchmarks assessments online. Again, no easy task. The administration of the AZM2 also provided challenges for, as all students, including the 7,000 plus online students, had to come in person to complete their assessments. Carrie and the senior assessment specialist, Lori D., worked tirelessly to provide the necessary training and support for schools for successful administration of our assessments. The team worked tirelessly to prepare the data in an effective reporting format so that student growth and progress could be utilized to guide instruction and intervention during an online format. Carrie and Lori D. are to be commended for the resilience in facing this complexity of assessment in a pandemic and are deserving of the Golden Apple Award for all of their dedication and hard work. Carrie and Lori D., thank you.
Can I have you step on this side? We want the folks at home to be able to see you.
Now they're strategizing. Again, thank you. Curriculum instruction. Paula, Amanda, Marissa, and Joan will be accepting the award this evening. WSD's mission is for student achievement, preparing all students to become responsible, successful contributors to a diverse society. Academic Services Curriculum Instruction Department is committed to ensuring the teachers have the necessary instructional resources to meet the needs of their learners. When word was received that schools would be closed due to COVID-19, the CNI team jumped into action. Director Paul McQuarter swiftly and seemingly effortlessly, because it was a lot of work, I would agree with that, organized teacher committees to develop our work packets for students. These materials were prepared weekly and distributed to all K-8 students for the remainder of the 1920 school year. Once that year ended, the team immediately began working on developing lessons for the online program for the 2021 school year. Thanks to their commitment to maintaining the high-quality educational opportunities, despite the challenges of being online, the students of the WSD were engaged and focused on learning, and teachers were fully supported through a really difficult time in education. The CNI team demonstrates outstanding leadership each and every day, and we are pleased to honor them tonight with a Golden Apple recognition. Paula, Amanda, Marissa, and Joan, please come forward.
You get to do it. Joe later.
Right, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Thank you very much. Federal programs. Deirdre May, please come up to accept the award. As a very large Title I school district, WSD receives a variety of grants that support programming and instruction for our schools. The oversight, development, and management of these grants is a tremendous task and requires effective collaboration between schools and many district departments. Due to the talent of leadership of Director of Federal Grants, Deirdre, the team maintains high standards of compliance and effective utilization of resources to the benefit of the students and staff in our schools. During the pandemic, Ms. May worked with district leadership to determine how to reallocate Title I funds to support the needs associated with online learning. Working closely with the Arizona Department of Education, Deirdre successfully navigated its processes to get funding where it was needed to support our students. With the addition of ESSER grants, Ms. May and the federal programs team have taken additional management on with these grants. The talent of this team has been instrumental in ensuring that this essential source of funding for the district is available to support our many programs and especially our students. The Golden Apple recognition is fitting and well-deserved to recognize the work of this tremendous team. Deirdre.
Ready to see if Deirdre at home.
Again, thank you so much. And thank you to all the departments we recognized tonight. I know sometimes you're unsung heroes, and we wanted to make sure you were recognized. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Tucker, we're on to public participation. Do we have any?
No, we did not receive any public participation.
Okay. Then that moves us to item I, approval of the consent agenda. Are there any items that any board member would wish to pull? Okay, hearing none, I'll entertain a motion for the approval of the consent agenda items A through H.
So moved?
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. Can I have a second?
I second.
Thank you, Ms. Abbott Biardi. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Okay, and I do want to take a moment to acknowledge a gift and donation. We have the gift of $13,500 from the Four Peaks for Teachers to the Washington Elementary School District to be distributed throughout the year for classroom supplies and paper. So thank you to Four Peaks for that donation. With that, we are going to be recessing our regular meeting for a public hearing. May I get a motion to recess the regular meeting for public hearing?
I move.
Thank you, Ms. Abbott Biardi. Can I get a second?
Second?
Thank you, Ms. Peterson. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and motion carries. I believe Ms. Moore is standing at the podium, so I believe that is you. Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Whaley, Governing Board members, community. Tonight we'll be conducting the first read of Policy IC, which is the School Year and Instructional Time Model. So this year Arizona passed House Bill 2862, which allows a school district or charter school to adopt some unique instructional time models. This would allow us to satisfy the annual daily membership attendance and student count, but then offer some flexibility as to how we would implement those instructional time. Under the Arizona Revised Statute 15901, students must still receive a minimum number of instructional hours per year to be considered as full-time students. And so these required hours are as follows. For kindergarten, it's 356 hours. Grades 1 through 3, it's 712 hours. And then grades 4 through 8, it's 890 hours. So what this bill does do, it provides us some flexibility for a district or school to determine just how these instructional hours will be included. And with, I think, some of the experiences we went through with COVID and the pandemic, we realized that there's some challenges. And so having flexibility in what those hours and how the instruction is administered is important. So options would include in-person or remote direct instruction, project-based learning, independent learning, mastery-based learning delivered in a blended classroom model with multiple grade levels and then multiple grade content levels. Instructional time and school schedules could also be flexible. That's included in the provision. So that would include staggered times, weekends, could look at some reallocation of time to allow students additional time in areas that are in need of remediation. And once again, staying at pace with grade level, and then also addressing those instructional times. For the 2021-22 school year, instructional time may be provided remotely for up to 50% of the total instructional time for the year for the school or the district. For the 22-23 year, that will drop down to 40%. So that's a provision that they've made to help accommodate the potential for some COVID-related issues continuing. This instructional time model that we're proposing tonight in this first read would allow us to offer our distance learning program for grades 5 through 8, and that would be at the Royal Palm School facility, and that would allow us still to meet those instructional time with having some flexibility with the instructional model that they would be delivered in. And so looking at how that remote learning would be done. We are also monitoring guidance that's currently being continued to be provided by Arizona Department of Education, and we will make any necessary adjustments once we get that information when we get to that second read. So tonight is, like I said, the first read, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Board members, any questions? Okay, seeing none from my colleagues, I'll go ahead and pose a couple questions. And clarification, I just want to make sure. So this is for instructional time, which I do appreciate that it gives us the leeway of how we can meet those hours. My question is, and I'm not completely familiar, but I understand that there's, aren't there mandates around a certain amount of minutes in certain subjects that we would have to meet?
Yeah, Ms. Whaley, there are, and so we would still meet those requirements. This really, it focuses on those total instructional minutes, but we would still be following the guidelines of how much we would offer for each subject area.
So there's no requirement that only 40% of a particular subject is online. This is total minutes.
Right,
Okay.
but there is some flexibility. Once it said, once again, it said for if there's areas of remediation that we would like to put more time to. So that would allow us some flexibility with that, but we would still be sticking to the required minutes for each subject area.
The other question I have is, it allows for weekends, evenings, flexible schedules. How might that impact, or does it impact the contract day if we are required to, meet the minutes in that way? What would that process look like? How would we approve that?
So this is language that we worked with our attorney on. Actually, Ms. Whaley, just, ASBA I know is going to be putting out something out soon, so we may have some changes from ASBA in the second read because they're going to put out some recommended models. These are just recommendations. I don't believe that that's the current plan for our distance learning or any of those opportunities. It just gives us a tremendous amount of flexibility so that if and when you do offer, in this case, we're using a distance learning model, you have to meet those minimum minutes. By the way, it doesn't say max, but those are minimums. And so it gives us the flexibility to do it. How we do it then is our delivery. This is actual language cut right out from the law, but we're not necessarily planning on that right now, I don't believe. So that would not be a current issue. It's potentially in the future. That's why you have to do the two reads.
Right.
But right now, that's not the intention.
And
Okay.
likely we would be looking at stipend work or other ways to compensate.
So if we found that we needed to do that, we would revisit it at that time. This
Absolutely.
just gives us, the policy gives us the application. And the last thing, it allows for up to 50% to be virtual, and that is helpful because should we need to go fully virtual for COVID reasons, we can do that. And can you tell me the difference between the AOI that, first what it stands for, something in online instruction, because there you can do 100% if you're part of it. So can you just talk about the difference between these instruction minutes as they play out relevant to our online school?
Yeah, absolutely, Ms. Whaley. An approved or Arizona-approved online instruction would be an AOI. We did go through the process of getting approved. However, at this time, we are not going to need to utilize that. This flexible instructional time model will allow us to follow a very similar schedule to what our other students are doing. So they'll be following, the Royal Palm schedule, getting those instructional minutes. And we will then also have some of the other pieces of the mastery learning, these, project-based pieces that the students can do. So it will align nicely, and they will still meet the instructional minutes that are required, which is that, for 4 through 8, the 890 hours for the year.
So should we need to, and we'll probably get to this, but should we need to, our AOI, our online certificate through Royal Palm would allow us to go 100% virtual if we needed to through that school? And then this only dictates the ones that are not part of that school.
If I could, I can help Ms. Moore.
Yeah.
So we're using distance learning. There's two terminologies I'd like to be clear for the audiences, and obviously Ms. Whaley and everyone. We're using a distance learning model. The AOI is an option where a lot of school districts, or not a lot, many of the high school ones offer self-paced learning, that type of thing. Our team worked very hard, Paula and the team that was just here, on offering, and our teachers offering person-to-person instruction, even though it's virtual. The AOI is just out there, but I don't really want to, we're trying to avoid that because we don't need that unless we need it. And I can't see at this point when we would need it because we've got distance learning teachers who can teach, multiple hours of the day. Literally, the difference is just the medium being used. So we're going to be using distance learning. On a funding standpoint, I'll just be honest, that's also a 1.0. That's not why we did it. We actually know that for K-8 students, the best thing is to have them in front of the teacher. But the AOI would then be at 9.95. So the districts that choose to do that get 95 cents on the dollar, whereas if we're doing our thing, that's actually, according to the state, we're allowed to then do 1.0. And I think what's more important is we'll give our students a face-to-face teacher throughout the day to give them their instruction. A lot of what your families dealt with, say, last year.
Yeah. Okay, that makes more sense because I wasn't really sure what the AOI, that means that is not a live instruction, that is a self-paced.
For the most part, there are some AOIs, again, for example, one of my teammates, Steve, that his former district had a different model like that. I've seen a lot more AOIs in my career at the high school level, but obviously we're talking about, K-3 students learning reading and things like that. And so our focus is trying to get them in with the teacher, getting small group intervention. That's why we lowered the class size, et cetera. So yeah, the AOI, we did pass it in case we need it, because when all this law was coming down, Carrie and the team and Teresa and the other ones looked at it and said, let's make sure we have this in our pocket if we need it. But if we have to go, I also one thing you said earlier, if we have to go virtual, then this is instructional model by choice. If we have to, shut a school down or something like that, that's going to be then dictated by another entity. That would not necessarily be relevant then at this point, because if the state or the ADHS from our conversation earlier tells us, then we just got to do it.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to go too far down a different agenda thing. I just didn't know how this policy impacted those other models that we're playing with. So I think that's the only question I had, and I still have no others from the board. So I think we are good, and we can resume or exit the public hearing.
We didn't have any public in the chat. We opened it up.
Okay.
So I've been checking.
All right, and so with no public comment on this particular area, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Ms. Tucker, do I need to do anything in particular? Okay, so we're going to be closing the public hearing, and we are going to be moving back into the regular meeting with action discussion item A, the revision of WESD's Safe Return to Learning Plan, and for that, I'll turn it to Dr. Stanton.
Madam Vice President, members of the board, members of the audience, as we brought before to this board, when we have the major changes to our return to learn, or in this case, we were using the term safe return to learning, we'll be talking a little bit about some of the changes. This is our third version of this, and so if Ms. Tucker, if you'll hit the next slide, hopefully you've had a chance to go through all the document. If you haven't, that's okay too. But we are updating the reopening plan based on the Arizona governor and legislature, recommendations from Maricopa County's Department of Health, and based on the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidelines. And that's on page 2 if you hadn't had a chance to look at it in the letter that I wrote. So some of the highlights you'll see along the way is that all schools recommend universal and correct use of masks. And Ms. Whaley, thanks for catching that earlier. I'll adjust it. That's why we do make presentations. The actual area where the recommendation, because of the change by the state budget bill that got passed at the end of session, is that we can recommend masks, cannot mandate. We will still continue our physical distancing. We will continue our hand washing. We will continue our respiratory etiquette. the cleaning and maintaining of our healthy facilities, and the contact tracing in combination with isolation and quarantining. That's what we're already doing. And so we're going to continue many of those practices along the way. One thing, and thank you, JJ Spellman, and a lot of folks that did research, and if you've been seeing it now in the newspaper, students and staff riding in school buses still, however, must be required to wear a face mask as required by the federal mandate. Maricopa County Health partnered with our school districts and vaccine vendors to ensure that every staff member had the opportunity for getting a vaccine, and we did that in the spring. We actually then also, with Glendale Union and Maricopa County and our partners, added vaccine vendors for our 12 and older children as well, and we did that in the spring. And then finally, many of you filled it out since you're on board with our children. We completed our acknowledgement form, and I want to thank Danny, your team actually worked very hard on the acknowledgement form. So every parent will know and family will know the expectations from the families in schools. And I think it's important to know what we expect you to do before the kids come to school, and then, of course, what you can expect from us. This came out of the, the CDC guidance. So the key takeaway, if you've been following, is that students benefit from in-person learning and a safe return to school to in-person instruction. Some of the CDC prevention strategies are promoting vaccinations, consistent and correct use of masks. And by the way, some of us are modeling that this evening, and that's something that Dr. Bailey has shared with our administrators that we would like to model at our schools, because we know that children may be feeling different pressures, and we want to make sure that we model as well. So as Dr. Bailey said to our principals, as the admin coaches, my team, et cetera, go out, we'll be doing the same. So screening, testing to provide identified cases, clusters, and outbreaks. Ventilation, I saw Mike Kramer. Obviously, Mike's worked really hard on the ventilation at our schools, plus the scrubbers. We have hand washing, and I know Danny has talked before about we have hand washing and respiratory. We already have the hand washing sanitizers. We're ready to go. Staying home when you're sick and getting tested if you need to, if a staff member or student are in that position. We will do contact tracing in combination with isolation and quarantining. I know there's been some discussion of that, but actually Maricopa County talked to us today at 2 o'clock that we are continuing the same practices we have done in the past. And then, of course, we do have daily cleaning and disinfection in our schools. So at the current time, we're not allowing, and I know this is tough, but we're not allowing outside visitors beyond the school office, except for the safety and well-being of students and the approved vendors, such as people that have to come in that work with kids on special needs, things like that. For the first quarter, we will look at it for the first quarter, and then we'll look at it quarter by quarter along the way. Parents will report to the front office and not go beyond the front unless they have to for the safety and well-being of the child. That was just like it was last year. That's just how we did it even in the fourth quarter, if you remember. Currently, we're suspending our field trips with student travel for the first quarter. We'll look at it again in the second quarter as we go into it. We're talking about group gatherings and limiting size. We worked on it actually with our staff when we did, I mentioned Arroyo, we were able to get the 3 feet of distancing that the CDC recommends. We'll look at other opportunities for the virtual field trips and extracurricular activities, because we know, by the way, that some of this brings kids to school. I remember this discussion as it was clear as bell yesterday. We want to have those activities. We also just want to practice the 5 universal strategies along the way. So we'll look at them after the first quarter. And then orientations, curriculum nights, meet the teacher. Dr. Bailey's gone over that with the principals on how we can follow the CDC guidelines, still meet the teacher, but in a safe environment. And then as we go into curriculum nights and picking up materials and all that type of stuff. So our principals right now are working on those opportunities so that the families can come in, but we do it in a safe manner. So 15 minutes, for example, together, things like that, 3 feet of distancing. And Dr. Bailey, again, if I missed anything, please jump in. And then outside groups that want to use our facilities, they can work with Erica's team like they've been able to in the past for use of our facilities along the way. Big chart here, wow. So ended up, we probably should have put them on 2 pages, but I see that now, and it's kind of funny being in the middle of the presentation. So on the left, we have the actual guidance that Maricopa County has out in regards to quarantining. And then on the right is actually the flow chart that we have been using actually, and that one's dated May of 2021, how we handle the situation if and when we have to deal with a quarantining of a student or staff member. And I apologize for those in the audience, that is small print, but it does go through, and our nurses have followed that and will continue to follow that, and then HR department for our staff has followed that and will continue to follow that. We have a very regimented system of what we go through if and when we have to deal with issues of potential outbreaks and exposures. And we will, Ms. Whaley talked a little bit earlier, we will put some hot links into our reopening or safe return to schools plan. So especially if this changes, the link will be where you can get the most current information along the way in our reopening plan. I know in the past we went page by page, but we wanted to highlight the changes between the first and second version and now what we consider our third version of this plan. I believe the next step is questions. I believe that's our last slide on that. So is there any questions that my team can entertain in regards to the safe return to schools?
First, before I turn it over to my fellow board members, I want to thank you for the summary. It's hard to say what's different with this plan than the other plan. It's, lots of pages, so I really do appreciate you giving us the highlights on that.
Sure.
With that, I'll first defer to any of the board members who may maybe start with just a couple questions and we'll rotate. Ms. Biardi.
Yes, thank you, everybody, for your hard work on all of this. I just had a question about the volunteers, and only from the perspective of the start of the school year. Is there a way that volunteers could come prior to kids coming back to school to make copies, to help with bulletin boards, to get everything? Are they allowed to do that?
Lee?
Challenging question. The reason why we were saying volunteers and visitors not on campus is that we were really following CDC guidelines and really saying to really limit as many as possible. And we've really been steadfast against that, to tell you the truth. So if there's certain circumstances, but it just seems that unless we make it the rule, almost a black and white rule, to tell you the truth, then the gray area starts to enter into it. And needless to say, as we've looked at our benchmarks, as we continue to do that, we're just trying to be as safe and healthy as possible.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions, Ms. Peterson?
I'm wondering can we pop back up the flow chart really fast? Because I don't think it's been intentionally kept like a secret, but I just think it's changed a lot of times. And so I think as a parent and as a community member, it's not super easy to read, but it's important. So this has to do with, if I'm correct, if a student, if anyone is exposed to someone with a positive case. And how do we define a close or exposure, or how do we define that?
So let's see if you can move it over. Excuse me, Ms. Tucker, if you can move it over a little bit. So if you see up in the upper right-hand corner, Ms. Peterson, if you were within 6 feet of a person with COVID-19 for a cumulative total of 15 minutes or more over a 24-hour period, or has any physical contact with a person with COVID-19, regardless of whether masks were worn, you might need to quarantine at home for 10 days. So.
Okay,
That
so
is
it's a 10-day quarantine is what the CDC
It could
do.
potentially be, yes, yeah, that comes right, that's Maricopa County based on the CDC guidelines. So that's kind of the definition we use for that close, could you come in? I think I may be looking at another spot where there's actual definition of what that means.
Okay, and then, so it's 6 feet, but this has been confusing too. The CDC is recommending 3 feet of distance is substantial, but if you're within 6 feet of someone with a positive case, so we're just extra careful there. Okay, so then, yes, symptoms, no symptoms. So obviously if they're symptomatic, you need to stay home.
That's right.
Anybody's symptomatic, whether you've been in close contact. No symptoms, so it wasn't a close contact, or yes, I am.
Yep.
So if they get a negative test result
Mhm.
And have been fully vaccinated, then,
That's the last orange. So if you kind of follow the two, no, not vaccinated, or yes, you were
so
fully
yes, I had
vaccinated.
close contact, yes, but I had a negative result and
Mhm.
I was fully vaccinated.
Right.
So there's no need, then I don't have to quarantine.
Mhm.
If I was a close contact, but I wasn't tested, then I need to keep going, right?
And what I'd like to say, if I could, Ms. Peterson, is that that's why we work closely with Maricopa County, because when we get in these situations, and they actually reiterated today on their webinar, We deal with outbreaks, which are large scale, but even in small scale, they want us to call to work them through that. And then we would work directly with our nurses. So this is the flow chart, but Debbie and Beth, who are our head nurses, they actually walk us through this to make sure that we, especially with the situation of children, and then Steve's staff does it directly with staff. But yes, we kind of go yes, and you're just like where you're at right now.
Okay, so if they get, this is something I hadn't seen before. If they get a negative result, so they're tested, get a negative result, and they're either fully vaccinated or have a previous COVID positive test in the past, in the last 90 days, is that what it says on the side there?
Yeah, I'm trying to see which one you're looking at, sorry.
Far right, so.
Yeah, if you're previously infection, if you were previously tested positive for COVID by a PCR and antigen test and have recovered and completed your isolation period within the last 90 days, you do not need to quarantine.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And so.
And we don't want to hide that. That's why we'll put it out there and.
Yeah, and
then-
I didn't mean to sound like,
No.
I just think it's been so fluid and changing, and
Yeah.
we've learned it and learned it again and relearned it. So I think that's a really valuable piece for our families to understand, is that, you know, if we do have those close contacts, we have to try to isolate those problems and keep everybody else safe if we can. So.
You may have also heard Dr. Chris on the radio talking about that even in certain circumstances, people with vaccinations might have to also deal with it depending on the circumstance as well. So I know there's been discussion of unvaccinated versus vaccinated. I wish I had a perfect answer, but that's why we work closely with the folks from Maricopa County.
Yeah, I appreciate that and walking me through that so we could see that a little bit closer. Thank you.
And we'll make sure that's accessible to our families.
Thank you, Dr. Stanton, and I do appreciate that, because we do know that, you know, I had a lot of questions, and I did sit down ahead of time with Dr. Stanton and Dr. Bailey,
Yep.
because there's a lot going on. There has been a lot of changes, you know, and parents are concerned on both ends. We know that our kids, most of our kids do better in person, but we also know we're a K-8 district, and the majority of our students are too young to even have access to a vaccine, and so we really have to do everything in our power to create as healthy of an environment as possible. And all of our health associations, CDC, Maricopa, Pediatric Association, all say the number one thing is masks. Well, the governor, the legislator, through their bill passing, basically took that option away from us. We can't do anything about that. We also can't do anything about the vaccine here or there. So when we take the two biggest things that we can do to prevent the spread of our most vulnerable students, which is our youngest students, we need to do everything in our power that is still there, and we need to do it well. So I appreciate as a parent myself, I wanted to know, like, I felt pretty good about sending my kid back to campus with everything in place. I got a little nervous when we started taking things away. So Dr. Stanton assured me that the things that we were doing previously are going to continue to happen. It's not going to be a maybe. We're going to continue to be vigilant on the hand washing and the spacing, and we can't require masks, but we're going to encourage them. And even for vaccinated people, because of the variants, my mom was an ER nurse at John C. Lincoln. She's seen people get the variant who've had the vaccine. They do better, but they can still get it. So I want to thank you for taking the time, because it is a scary situation, and our K-4 students don't have an online option. Our K-5, our 5 through 8s can choose to do an online. We don't have that choice. Their choice is to come to campus or find a different school. And we don't want them to find a different school, so we need to make it as safe as possible so people continue to come. So I just want to kind of put that out there. I also want to talk about some other tools that we have. We have the flexibility with the policy that is coming forward, and eventually with the second read possibly be passed, that should things get out of hand, you know, because right now, and this is a concern of mine, right now, if we look at the CDC metrics and the Maricopa County metrics, we are in the red zone right now. This time last year, we would have been closed. So why, you know, I'm concerned of why it was not okay before. Now, we do have more people vaccinated, and we do have that in our arsenal, but I think that we owe it to our community to say, and this plan doesn't say it, of what our threshold's going to be, because there was some concern about who can make the call to go to virtual. And so I don't know if you got any more clarity. My understanding was that we could still make that call, but maybe it's only the county that can make that call.
Ms. Whaley, members of the board, members of the audience, so I was, because there's a lot of alphabet groups trying to get that answer, and so Ms. Whaley posed the question. Right now, as of today, our own attorney believes that Maricopa or Arizona Department of Health would be able to make the call, as Ms. Whaley is correctly identifying, with the rescindance of Executive Order 2021, I think -04, we're looking at today from the governor. Now it believes that, and this is at the current time, by the time we come back, there may be some changes because we're going to continue to pursue it. But one of our agencies thought it was the Arizona Department of Health. So from what we had today, our own attorney thought it was either Maricopa or Arizona Department of Health, and then our other thinks it's just Arizona Department of Health. That's why we need clarity for all school districts, not just Washington, on if and when, as I guess we're handing out doctorates tonight, so excuse me. So as Ms. Whaley said, we need clarity on this, because we need to know in this situation, because as she described last year when the governor gave the option to school boards, now we're hearing again it's either ADHS, Maricopa, so I would hope by the time we come to the second read I'll be able to give you more clarity, or at least, and I know you reached out to your folks at SBA. I've got it out with ASA and others, so hopefully I'll have a little clarity on that if and when. I know that the last time we dealt with this, for example, a outbreak, we did work directly with Maricopa County, Ocotillo, if you remember, a year ago, and so I know we'll work with them no matter what, but I don't have the clarity as of this evening if it's ADHS or Maricopa County. I can only tell you that it's narrowed down to those two agencies at this point.
So just for everybody, it's out of the district's hands in terms of when we can go to a fully virtual or hybrid type of environment, because only the county can tell us if that's, and if they don't, even though the numbers go well above the red area of the CDC, we still cannot do that unless we decide to go outside of them, and then we're waiting for clarity of whether we can do that, because we do still have the ability to do 50% online. So if we pass that policy, is that correct?
Okay, two different, Ms. Whaley, members of the board, members of the audience. Again, two different policies. The policy for the instructional minutes or instructional model that Ms. Moore brought is based on the fact that school districts can offer different models, not necessarily an emergency. So the difference is that's our instructional model for during the year, non-emergency. What you're referring to is in a outbreak or a situation of large numbers, as you were talking about, then that would be where we would, again, I'm thinking it's ADHS or Maricopa County would then say, based on what's happening at that school or site, then you need to go to distance learning. Those are two different things. The instructional model is for...
We have to say this is what we're going to be doing.
In normal times, I guess I would say, for lack of better words, we're in a pandemic, so I'm not sure completely what's normal, but the idea is that in a normal situation where we're going to offer distance learning like we talked about, that's what that policy is for. What you're referring to is if we had to, quote unquote, move everybody at a school, or, because we still, by the way, if we had an outbreak and we sat down with Maricopa County and we had to deal with it in the classroom, we would do the same thing we did last year. We might have to take a whole classroom and move them, and we did that. I don't want to say we got good at it, but it happened. But you're talking about like a major outbreak and what we would do to then go like the whole district, and that's where we need ADHS or Maricopa County to help us with. And we'll get, between now and the next meeting, we'll try to get clarity on that one for sure.
Okay, and I appreciate just walking through, because I just think it's important for parents that are concerned about it to know what the options are and what the options aren't, and what we can do as a district and what we can't do as a district, and in order to make an informed decision. And as much as we would like to have a plan B if in case, we at this point don't even have the authority to make, as far as we know, a plan B until we get the guidance as it stands right now. So I just wanted to just let the community know that we are doing everything that is in our power to mitigate risk. I encourage folks to do everything in their personal power to mitigate risks, because I don't want us to see an outbreak where we do get a forced shutdown because we are not doing things that we could have done to keep us open.
Ms. Whaley, members of the board, members of the audience, a couple things that aren't in the reopening plan. We did lower our class size, especially at the primary levels. And then, like I said, we're going to be, you can't force, but we're going to be strongly recommending, and that's the word choice that's written in there multiple times. Ms. Whaley mentioned I should put in my letter, and I'll correct that. That we were going to want people to model the behavior because, and if you remember when we did this last year, we had a discussion actually where if one person's wearing a mask, what that can do between the interaction of two people. If two people are wearing a mask, what can that do? So we're going to model what we can to particularly our younger students. I'm not going to say we're not going to do it to 6th, 7th, 8th grade, but definitely for the little ones so they understand that it's okay, that if you choose to, again, not mandated, but we'll model. And then when and if the vaccine's available to the younger kids, we will definitely be, where assumption is that they'll work with us directly so that we could be the hub for that type of work. That's what Dr. Bailey shared when we had to deal with the last time SARS-1. This is SARS-2. So again, as soon as we have that information, we'll let folks know.
Any other questions, concerns, comments on this matter? Hearing none, would anybody like to make a motion?
I move that the governing board accept the revisions to the WESD Safe Return to Learn plan for the 2021-2022 school year and authorize the superintendent to modify, alter, or change the plan as needed.
Thank you.
I second.
Okay, we have a second from Ms. Abbott-Biardi. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Motion passes. That takes us to our reports around the table. And we're starting with Administrative Services Report.
Madam Vice President, members of the board, members of the audience, we have been doing COVID updates, but then, actually, Ms. Biardi, you had mentioned, there is an option under our agenda to do reports. So I'll go around the dais like we typically do, and I'll start with Administrative Services, Dr. Bailey.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I think Dr. Stint actually took some of my fire, but by going through some of the, but I'll reiterate.
Dr. Bailey, we rehearsed this.
I know. I'm gonna pretend I remember that. Just like the Begin program, we have a new administrative training program, and we started that last week. So, and we continue that. Actually, our new administrative training program is actually built on the Begin program. So it's built on some of the same type of professional development. So we continue before the contract for administrators, and then we continue through the year. So we actually started that last week. Just like Dr. Stanton was saying, we had 3 days of unbelievable professional development, and a Royal School, thank you, Mr. Phil Lyles, was a perfect place for us to, first of all, practice our 3-foot distancing. It's a gorgeous cafeteria and auditorium, and we gave him about 24 hours notice to let him know. So, but he came through, thank goodness. We actually started with team builders because we're starting to build our team too. We have a lot of new members, as you've seen, so we're really starting to build our team. We even are continuing what we call a critical friend type of program. So we pair our administrators up with another critical friend that is not in their region, is maybe a district person, and we build that collaboration within the year, and we'll often say, discuss this with your critical friend. And what the information that we've got from administrators last year, that this made a unbelievable difference during the pandemic because they could throw ideas and thoughts over with each other. So we started that curriculum, Critical Friend. Also during that time, we really went into the panorama data, and I know that you'll, as a board, get opportunity to look at that panorama, social and emotional data, and we really got into the thick of things with that, as well as really looking at, now we're at one-to-one technology. We have enough Chromebooks for every single one of our students. What do we do? How do we build that into the instructional type of program? So we actually received a lot of information on that. A lot of the information was for pre-week. Our pre-week begins August 2nd through August 6th. there are 2 half-days that the district office is actually doing virtual training with all of our teachers on the curriculum documents, on the new assessments, and really getting into a lot of that. Also, part of that is really going into the health and safety guidelines, really reviewing what has come up with, thank you that you've approved the reopening plan, really getting into the guidelines and the parameters on that. Also, dealing a lot with social and emotional, and really looking at the guidelines as we continue to work with our staff on that. As usual, the teachers have at least one day in their classrooms. So it is a 5-day week, but at least that they have one day of no meetings, that they have time within their classrooms. So, and then right after that, we begin. Monday, looking forward to more than those 20,000 that I talked to you about, and more entering our classrooms. So thank you.
Madam Vice President, members of the board, members of the audience, as I continue around the dais, Steve Mattingly will give an update regarding our staffing. So, Steve?
Thank you, Dr. Staton. Vice President Whaley, members of the board, and guests in the audience, right now we're at a staffing numbers that we've got about 12 vacancies in our certified positions, 4 being content, 8 being special services or needs, special ed. I do want to take this opportunity to acknowledge first the HR department that works very hard processing a lot of paperwork to manage the recommendations that are coming from our principals, and they're out there, principals, and along with their committees, members, probably mostly teachers, helping them vet out those applications and applicants to find the best and the brightest they can to serve the community they serve. So I want to reach out to the principals and their committee members saying thank you for your hard work and trying to find the best and the brightest. I also want to just share and piggyback off of what Dr. Stanton said a little earlier was we had a really successful classified job fair this past July 19th. And want to reach out to those directors, teachers, coaches, and principals that participated and engaged in that. So thank you very much for that. It was a huge turnout. We had well over 50 applicants that showed up, and it was well received. It was well set up. Thank you to Phil for allowing us to use his gym again, and had that spread out and meeting all the guidelines that we should meet on that. So that concludes my update on staffing.
Madam Vice President, members of the board, members of the audience, continuing around the dais, Danny O'Brien will give an update in regarding to business services.
Thank you. Madam Vice President, members of the board, Dr. Stanton, members of the audience. I'm here tonight to just give a little bit of an update. As Dr. Stanton mentioned earlier, the state has made a law that we cannot require students and staff members on school property to wear masks. But for our transportation, because school buses fall under the CDC transportation guidelines, we still have to have masks on the bus. So just give a little quick update. Currently, as we stand right now, we have approximately 250 8-ounce bottles with transportation right now, ready to put on the buses and be ready to go for all the little students to clean their hands. And we have approximately 12,290 17-ounce bottles and over 322 gallons of hand sanitizer in the warehouse. So we will track it over the first couple weeks of school to see kind of where we're going. Hand sanitizer probably won't go as quickly, but I am a little concerned. We have approximately 7,500 masks, and as we know, if we give a mask out, by the end of the day, who knows where it is. Could be buried in the bottom of the backpack, could be on the playground. So we're going to monitor the masks really well to determine. We've already have purchased some, but we're going to monitor it to see kind of what the turnover rate is for those. Obviously, we do know that some students will bring their masks, but we do know some won't. So thank you very much.
Madam Vice President, members of the board, members of the audience, continuing around the dais, Ms. Lori Morrow will give an update regarding the academic services. Mrs. Morrow.
Thank you, Vice President Whaley, governing board members. So as you've heard tonight, and we got to honor our team, the academic services team has been extremely busy this summer. And they've been working on getting our curriculum documents updated and ready for teachers. They've been really looking at how to support teachers as they are coming back into the schools. So they've spent hours of time, and under the direction of Ms. Paula McWhorter, who is still here, yeah, she's still here, they have really put these documents into a place where teachers can navigate. They're user-friendly. They've embedded resources so teachers aren't looking all over. Those instructional specialists that were up here, they take such pride in their work, and they have really thought about as many different ways that they can make it accessible for the teachers. And there's even places where they've embedded videos of how to teach lessons, and teachers can go in and watch. And the direct links. Our ed tech department's been amazing in helping to get that all set up. So we do have our Apple curriculum site, and it's up, ready to go. We've added, special area. We have EL in there, so it's going to be very powerful resource for our teachers to have at their fingertips to go to, and it will continually be updated. Another exciting piece that we're bringing in this year is we have acquired 2 diagnostic tools, which will help us to then determine students' levels. And we did talk about the math diagnostic in the past meetings, but now we've been able to add the reading diagnostic as well. So this is really going to allow us to pull some very focused data on our students so that we will know where the reading deficits and math deficits are, and then what interventions do we need to put in place, and then how do we measure the results from that. And within those tools, there's resources as well. So those are going to be a great addition to our instructional model that we're bringing on board. As you heard, we worked with our administration on going over all those documents, because now we know we have the challenge of making sure the teachers are prepared for that. So as Dr. Bailey talked about, we're getting ready for those pre-weeks in which our teachers will once again have the opportunity to train on all those materials, and we will support them with all of that. We've talked a lot in the study session tonight about our Bridge and Begin programs. We're extremely proud that we still have those available. Bridge this week has been just awesome to go over there and watch the excitement. And these are people who have chosen to make a change in profession. They have a degree in something else, but they have a passion for teaching. And so just interacting with them and seeing the excitement with that. Between all 3 Begin programs, we have close to 300 people that will be participating in that. So that's a successful induction program that will once again support those new teachers as they work through us. Additionally, with the Bridge program, going back to that one, we are in our 2nd cohort. So we had a cohort of about 20 teachers last year, 22. They have now moved, and we have added a 2nd cohort. So they're kind of starting from year 1 again. So then our year 2 will be getting different content. And then we've also added a special education cohort this year, which we're extremely excited about, given that we often have vacancies that are difficult to fill at this time of year. And so we've been able to bring 14 candidates into that program. And so they're working on getting their special education certification along with us, and we were approved for that again this year as well. So it's a program that we're proud of, because very few districts in the state have that, but also the work that's been put into those programs, and that team has just been phenomenal. They've been spending all summer figuring out what that content's going to look like, and at the end of it, these teachers will get a certificate that would allow them to continue to teach. So that's exciting as well. So thank you.
Madam Vice President, members of the board, members of the audience, I'll conclude our updates from the superintendent's report. Ms. Tucker? There we go. So again, Ms. Whaley mentioned earlier, so I guess you stole my thunder. No, it's what Dr. Bailey said. As Ms. Whaley noted, we do track closely the cases per 100,000 and the percent positivity. They did go up this past week. We'll have to watch closely next week. What I will say is it does seem to be a pattern that comes from the West Valley and then seems to head up. I know it's going to sound odd, but I-17, so if you look around the districts around us today, many of the districts are exactly in the same point: Glendale Union, Glendale, Madison, et cetera, or real close. So if past patterns happen, that would then hopefully move. But we'll see. This is, again, a different situation, as Ms. Whaley mentioned. So we are watching this closely along the way. Along with in my presentation, the legislative and the government updates, the governor's updates, we actually did that a little bit earlier with the masks. But what Ms. Whaley did ask, and I think it's a great idea, so we'll be working on is we'll actually put the reference in the law from where the mask mandates and the vaccination mandates come from, the actual reference for how quarantining works, which actually comes from an actual law code, that we can put it in there so that parents and families can have the references in there along the way. And then, again, from the Maricopa County meeting today, there was a lot of superintendents and staff members on there. Everyone's trying to work through this to create the environment for our students. And again, for our district, I just want to remind everybody, we did lower class size on purpose to give a smaller setting. And then, of course, that'll give us a chance to work on the learning opportunities, Ms. Moores always tells me to say. The federal government calls it learning loss. We'll call it a learning opportunity, and we'll work on that. But we'll be able to get small group intervention. I think the key and the crux of the discussion is these strategies that if people choose to do it, and I think we're going to promote, as you said, we'll promote mask usage cannot require, and then vaccinations when they become available, and we'll continue to promote for our 12-year-olds and up as well to have that opportunity along the way. So with that, my team is ready to take any questions. Thank you.
Board members?
I just have one question, and I don't know if you want to add this on, Dr. Stanton, to you said we're doing the lower class sizes. I don't know if you want to post that on where the law part is too. I think that would be really good for parents to know. I didn't notice it in the reopening plan, but to let families know we have done that as well as one of our mitigation strategies, so just to lower the class sizes. It's a kudos to our district for doing that. Thank you.
Ms. Peterson?
Yeah, and to speak to that, actually, I was in a social media group and somebody was asking about district schools, and someone said, well, our kids go to a Washington Elementary School District, and we heard that they're keeping the class sizes really low this year, and like it was a selling point in this little community. So I think that's important for people to understand and hear. I had a question, Mr. Mattingly, about our 12 vacancies. So what it happens, right? Like, I was a July hire. They're out there.
Board certified teacher.
I had to get hired in a field I didn't intend to teach originally, but I stayed there for 20 years, so I guess it was the right choice in the end. But anyway, what happens if we do not fill those 12 vacancies? What are our contingency plans?
Governing Board, Whaley, Governing Board members, the contingency is not to have to use that contingency. Our principals are out there working hard, and our HR department is out there marketing and trying to hit our social media, trying to also use even our staff to tell everybody. I'd send out usually on Friday an email to everybody promoting to push it. But right now, with the fact that our numbers are where they're at as far as student enrollment, and the fact that we do have a model in place where class sizes are going to be lower, to provide the number one goal is those students a teacher, there might have to be a little bit more flexibility to manage that enrollment with the ratio of teachers. So. But please know that our principals and HR department is doing everything we can to try to find the right people for those positions.
Governing Board, Vice President Ms. Whaley, we do have a couple of options. We can contract, and we have some contract services that we work with. We also have the availability of long-term subs, and a lot of times we go back to our retired teachers that have just retired and seeing if they're willing, at least for a certain time period, to actually take over a class until we can actually hire. But I'm very, very hopeful that we can hire we've been even hiring 3 or 4 even as we speak every single week. So.
If I could, to add to that, again, the contract services for many of you are in education, special education. Lydia and Jean I think Lori already have those established. So we have a backup plan for the special ed, especially because everybody understands, I think, compensatory ed and things like that, so we have to do that. And then even for Dr. Bailey's, we do long-term subs, but I see two of my principals in the back there, and they will work on contingency planning at the school level, again, if we have a need to do that, some of that type of work. So again, there's long-term subs, there's Tracy, Philip, those kind of guys will work with their teams to see what we can have. I do say, because we did talk to Mr. Wing and others, that their district, this is an issue for the statewide of Arizona. This is not an issue exclusive to us. So 12 is a good number. It's still not enough because, as Steve said, we'd like to not have that issue. But so it's either contract services in the cases where we can, long-term subs, and then working with the principals on strategies to start the year off if we have to, if that helps.
Thank you, I appreciate that. The optimism and the information, both. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, we're going to go ahead and move forward to future reports and agenda items. Any requests? Okay, hearing none, I will take a motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can I get a second? All right, we have a second, and all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and we are adjourned at 8:06 PM.